Hello and welcome, I'm JD, and if you are watching this minor update video, then no, you haven't missed anything. This is me finally getting around to the minor update, which the new map Tumbleweed, shown in the background, has been released back on July the 2nd, so over a month ago. I'm just finally getting around to it now. So let's just have a look. This is the new map Tumbleweed. You've probably played it a million times by now. Something different to Pillars. It's good to still see the devs bringing out new maps, particularly as we get closer and closer to Conquest. And when I say that, I don't have an indication on time range. It's just, after a while, Pillars gets boring. So there are, what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 capture points centered around a asteroid. Now, the asteroid color, I did see in the Discord a few people weren't too happy with the coloring, but I think it's actually quite nice. We get a lot of grays and a lot of browns. It's nice to have a little bit of a different color. Looks like they've gone for like a greenish. Now, I'm not great with metals either. Maybe that's like iron or something like that. But yeah, I thought that was quite nice, just in terms of something different to break it up. And the what do you call this? The skybox is still sort of that purpley red. Makes all my thumbnails look the same, but yeah, it still looks pretty good. A few things that I actually liked about this map when I was first playing it, so you can see here I've got the Team 1 and Team 2, is that it was fairly open over on one side of the map around E, I think it is. One of the things that I did find when I was playing the game, I haven't played it live, just on the test servers, was that if you were really good at navigating down around point A, if you were the type of person who, when you either flip the map, or if you were just naturally good at playing at the bottom of the map, you definitely did have a lot more options, as it can get a little bit hard to navigate down the bottom. However, through the rest of it, it did seem pretty good, pretty even to play. Point C, I think, is the open point that I was talking about, and then when you come over to the other side, it is a little bit more tighter around point B. But the new map, different control modes, certainly looks like it's got a number of different options and gameplay styles that you can go in through here, and it's always good to see, any chance that we can get to mix up the meta is always a good one. Coming into the lobby, there is now a new filter, so you can now hide any of the empty matches, which is pretty good, noting that there are a number of dedicated servers, for example. Whilst there is a great number, you do want to be able to see which games are in progress and which ones have players in them. This is currently 4 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, so not too bad actually for that time zone, although my time zone is one of those ones where it's a little bit harder to get a game at the moment. Into the lobbies now, lobby point values now have a comma delimited numbers, so they basically just put a nice little comma every 3,000 points or so, or every sort of 1,000 points. Just makes it a little bit easier to see it at a glance. Probably going to become a little bit more important during Conquest, where some of these numbers will get a little bit bigger. I think anything where you can help players at a glance quickly identify something is definitely something that is a benefit. One of the other things is now you can reveal your fleet to the team. So whenever a new player joins or you change teams, it is going to hide your fleet. So you can see here that the CPU is hidden because they're not ready. And but if it was other players, they can then show it to you. Once you jump back to the other team, it's also going to hide your own fleet, and then you've got to repress the button to show everyone. So if you click on reveal your fleet to your team, then you can have your team members, and likewise they can click on your fleets if you've shown them. It actually shows you what they have. So a little bit small, I think. I don't think I've changed any of my settings that would potentially affect this, but just show you that Talon here, 5 Mark 64s, a VLS 146, and 4 Mark 20s. So you definitely does give you a bit of an option now to fully understand a few things about your fleets. It'd also probably be good to have radars on there. I think at maybe just the extra thing. I know you can continually add more and more and more, but I think that would probably be good, just so that you could understand, if it's more of a long range sort of radar ship, or if it's got a parallax and can do multiple functions. I think that's probably good, but I think this is a good step along the way of just a bit of lobby coordination, particularly instead of always having to type in the chat, you know, what are you bringing? And sometimes, you know, when you say I'm bringing gun light cruisers, it doesn't necessarily mean you then describe all the other support ships that you bring. So I mentioned it before, anytime you can have a quality of life improvement that assists players in making decisions quickly by having something that at a glance gives them the information summary, noting the amount of information that a player can get and receive, particularly new players, is always beneficial. And this is one of the changes. So you've obviously seen it, but one of the things that is missing from the screen is the fact that I have 5 ships, but I now only have 3 rings. The reason being, overlapping range circles in the tactical view are now stenciled out. So when I click on my one single ship, it's going to show me my my radar range, my visual, my PD range, and my offensive range, being the 3 different range circles. Maybe I'll pick on a light cruiser. But what happens now is when I actually click off, they're all going to be summarized. Now, it doesn't really show you too well, but if I was to speed up time, and now I was to move each of my ships to a different corner of the map, what you'll see is that these range rings now start to be pulled apart. So there you go. See how the point defense ring here is actually starting to come out a little bit. So this actually shows that all of my ships under this or in this part of the map, and there we go, see that bulge.
What can we do for you? Aye, aye, Commander.
So there you go, you see that bulge is occurring. What's showing is that the rings, instead of having 5 overlapping rings and you're having to look through all the different blue rings of the ship, or ships within your fleet to identify, well, what's my actual coverage? Now you can actually see, if I zoom out a little bit, a lot easier a representation of where you've got offensive, defensive, and radar coverage to be able to spot enemies. And I think this is a really good change, because as we get into Conquest, and there's going to be a lot of different ships moving around the battlefield, especially on larger maps like the Abyss, where they may, you know, have an encounter between 2 fleets, engaging from, you know, one system into another. You're actually going to want to be able to see, well, what parts of the map aren't covered by some form of radar coverage or defensive coverage.
We're ready whenever you are.
If I just pull these all back, we'll see what other shapes we can get.
Standing by. Aye, aye. We're on the way.
But I think this is a nice little quality of life enhancement, and I also think it does clean up the map a little bit, because there is a lot of things going on here, and so now it actually looks a lot cleaner than it previously did. Now, one of the other things that has also been done, and again, another quality of life at a glance improvement, is the fact that the radar panels used to be really hard to identify to see if they were working or not. Yes, you do have the fact that you can come into the DC board, but you'd have to look around for the radar panels, or you'd have to set any one of these up to be able to see them. Alternatively, you'd have to come in nice and close and actually see, oh yeah, it's still physically working. Well, now when you're in the tactical view and you've actually selected a ship, these blue lines will appear, and these blue lines indicate that your radar panels are actually working, and the coverage that they are in. So you can see here there's 4 radar panels on this Sprinter, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the angle comes off. So even as you rotate around, you'll be able to see them. It's not doing so well because well, it's maybe not the best angle, but if I zoom in a little bit, gotta remember how to use my camera. It's been a while. Okay, that'll be fine. You'll see each of the radar panels. So if I click across to the, what is that, a frigate, the destroyer, each of these have 4. You see down here on the light cruiser, same deal. There's your 4. Come back to the battle, heavy cruiser here, likewise has 4, but the battleship is a bit of an anomaly. And if I, again, if I just speed up the time a little bit, because this is the one I sort of want to talk to a little bit. The battleship has 8 panels, as you can see here, 4 on this side, 2 forward, 2 aft, and likewise. So it does have a bit of a different model, and I don't particularly like this. simply because I think it's actually harder to see. I know you've obviously got the orientation
Commander.
indicator on the tactical view. So as it spins around, you'll see where it is. So you'll sort of be able to see that top, bottom, left, and right on the right-hand side, and then sort of top, what's that? Top left, top right, bottom right. I just think it's a little bit confusing to see at a glance. There you go. You sort of see it if you get it at the right angle, but unlike these other ones where even if I get a weird angle, you can actually still see that the four are working. This one doesn't work as well in my eyes. Now, that's a very small criticism, I think, in terms of the overall benefits of this, because if you didn't have that, at least you know that, if two of these are down, and we'll come to that in a sec. If you see two of these down, at least you know, okay, there's two down and I need to come in here and have a look, and then you can come to your DC board. So at a glance, it works. I'm sure Maze has actually played with this quite a bit to see how this one could be improved, and this is probably the best, or it's auto-generated off the panels based off the models panels onto the tactical view. So I would rather have this than not have this, but yeah, just when I was looking at this when it first came out, it was a little bit it was a bit harder to understand. Maybe as you play it, or if you're a BB main, you'll get this a lot, or you'll pick this up a lot quicker than I did. And the final thing that I wanted to show you with the radar panels, so is when one of your radar panels is destroyed, and you can obviously tell when you zoom in, you get this nice little flickering electronic dance. You actually do get the red line. So blue when it's functioning, red when it's not functioning. Very simple indicator there to show that it's not working, and then you can come in there and simply make your repair as required. That'll go back to blue. Nice little change, I thought. So that's the Alliance. So if we have a look at the OSP, one thing that actually stood out for me, and I didn't actually realize, is that you only actually have two radar panels, one on the top and one in the bottom for most of their ships. Bit hard to see there. Yep, there's two. The Ocello has four because it's like the Alliance, and then two for the other ships as well. So yeah, that caught me by surprise. You think I would have understood that previously, but it's just something I've never noticed as part of the game. So radar top, radar bottom. They only need two radars, in fact, to be able to provide the sensor coverage of that 360. So if you imagine if you take this ship, draw a imaginary line sort of through the center of the model, and then you have the top and the bottom. Probably a bit better actually, because you can spend less restores, but I guess if you destroy that, you lose that whole bottom part, whereas at least with the Alliance, you've got a chance to then maintain sort of a 90-degree coverage, even if there's something destroyed on the other side. But yeah, just same deal applies. Blue if it's working, red if it's not. I wasn't very observant previously with the OSP model, so yeah, they just have top and bottom apart from the Alliance. All right, so the T81 has received a buff. Its health and its damaged threshold values have both gone up. So that's now going to match the C65, which is the casemate class 4 cannon. The reason being, if I remember off the top of my head, this was because they were just being obliterated off other ships too easily, and they wanted to have a class 4 be about equivalent without actually and to make the plasma cannon a little bit more viable than simply always just taking the C65. So a buff, I'm not sure how that's playing out in game, haven't played with it or against it, but if you've been seeing how this has been playing it out in the game, throw a comment down below and let us know. Likewise, a Grape Shot has also received a buff, so its muzzle velocity has increased up 200 by, so it was 900, now 1100 meters per second, and it's had a significant range increase from 5.5 kilometers now up to the patch note says 8 kilometers, but 7997 meters based on the card that I'm reading. And its damage has also gone up almost just over 50%, so it went from 10, now it's up to 16. The reason being, this was one of those underutilized pieces of ammunition, so it is a little bit more valuable now to take. It's still obviously 1 point for 100 units, but with that additional range, you'll be able to take out some of those lighter targets a little bit better, and you're less likely to miss because of that increased flight time, or muzzle velocity, I should say. So the 777 yard drive had a bit of a debuff. So its linear thrust bonus has been downgraded from 30% down to 10%, with the fact that its turn rate and angular thrust was also pretty high. I think this was basically an auto include on all ships that could take it, particularly for things such as the Cellos, and I think even to a degree bulkers, because with the fact that it can turn the bulker as well as provide that linear thrust, it basically became the default. So it's had a bit of a nerf. And whilst I'm also here on the OSP, the Ocello had a downgrade, so call it a debuff. Instead of having two C75 antennas, you've now got one C10 and one C75. It doesn't actually show you. I think that's the C75 on the front based on the fact that it's bigger, and I think that is the C10 at the back. And I should be able to check this because it only has the one spike. Something's going on there, but yeah, the models don't align between what you can mount versus ones that are integral. But I'm pretty sure that's the C75 because it's got the 3, and that's the C10 now. One thing I can't show you because I don't know where the actual statistic lies. I think it's just integral to the hull, but the damage threshold for the Solomon and Axford strafe thrusters, as well as its main and braking thrusters. So it's main braking thrusters and its strafing thrusters, which should be these ones on the side here, have had a bit of a buff. So you've gone from 15 to 20 for your strafing thrusters, and from 15 to 25 now for your braking thrusters. This should just keep them a little bit alive. So remembering that the damage threshold is the amount of damage that needs to effectively destroy it. So if you have a module and your damage threshold is 15, well, you need, once you get down to that 0%, you need a hit that should be at least 15 or more than 15 in order to completely destroy that and grey it out. I hope I've got that right. If I've got it wrong, someone let me know. But that's going to make these a little bit more durable, particularly if you're bow tanking a Solomon or an Axford. These get destroyed pretty quickly and then you can't break. So you're not going to actually be able to stop, and you can't repair them without doing one at each time. So you don't really want to prioritize a precious restore over a braking thruster, but if you don't do it, then you'll never sort of slow down, or it takes forever, which makes it really hard to then be able to move late in the game. So unsure how that's gone in the game again, but if you've thought that's a good buff or a bad buff, let me know. Be interested to hear your thoughts. And whilst we are on these big ships as well, there has also been a change to the drag of ships. So all of the ships have had a drag change, or I guess it's just the game has had a drag change. And so that drag has been halved for non-disabled ships. So it was a 0.03 down to, so it's now 0.015. Those stats mean nothing to me at the moment in terms of the context or percentage, because I'm not really sure really what it was set to begin with. But effectively, that's going to now make them be able to accelerate a lot easier after some changes, some previous changes. However, it now does mean that they are going to take a lot longer to slow down, because you won't have the inherent drag of the game already built in to help you actually slow that ship down. You're now going to have to apply these braking thrusters, which makes sense with them getting a bit of an increase. So the ships should be able to reach their top speed now in a decent amount of time. However, it also means once you start to take damage, or even just naturally, it's going to be a lot harder to slow these down. You may want to start to consider operating at 1/3, 2/3 speed instead of always going full speed. Particularly if you're thinking about starting to turn around certain locations, or if you're coming around a corner on pillars, for example. If you're going in a straight line, you think you're going to be going in a straight line for a while, flank speed or every time, you know what I mean? So the final change for this patch was anytime you change a point defense turret from auto down to dedicated, then any of your dual purpose weapons, such as your 120 mils or your 250 millimeter RPF, your fire control radars that were supporting those, or any illuminators, if you are using illuminators to guide any of your anti-missile missiles, will now be left to idle. So let's just have a quick test of that. Got this one here. It's fire 2.
We're reading you.
Get my finger on the buzzer.
Missile detected.
And as it comes in, see the RPF fire. But as I switch to dedicated, then we should just see the turrets fire. There we go. And if I switch to auto, they fire again. So just be careful when you're setting to dedicated. It is ideally one of those ones that you do want to use if you don't want the 250mm to be firing. Maybe you're in the middle of a battle and you don't, or you're about to engage and you don't want them to auto load RPF, because the game isn't able to then switch them back to HE or AP after they've engaged. That's one thing that we did ask when they were being initially implemented. It's just the game's logic isn't able to do it at this point in time. According to Mesa, but because it was one of those things that's like, it'd be great if you could do RPF and then you could auto load back to its last nature, or just auto load, you know, from the top, because then you'd be able to sequence things. It just couldn't be done. So be careful with dedicated. However, it does also have its it is a tool in the arsenal. So if you do want to maintain all of these loaded with HE and you're about to go into battle, maybe switching to dedicated isn't a bad idea, so that all your fire control illuminators and your dual purpose weapons are able to just focus on their actual tasks and leave point defense to point defense. All right, look, that ends this video. Apologies for it being over a month late. You've probably played with all of these little features. However, if you're a sort of visual learner, or you don't always go through the patch notes in detail, I hope that gives you a bit of an overview and a bit of insight into what was covered in this patch. I do know that there are things underway for the next patch, although I have no idea when they will actually be released, and that conquest is always coming along. So I won't promise making any more videos, because every time I do, I seem to not. Life has been busy, work has been exhausting. You know, this is something that I do in my spare time, but maybe we'll see some more at a, I don't know. Look, I hope you're well, and thanks for watching, and take care.